Hello, my dear players. Today, we're going to be talking about an idea for a Naruto video game that I've had for a very long time. It is a role-playing game, an action RPG. Uh, the I, the idea is that you would have four brand new Naruto characters to choose from to play as, each having their own unique circumstance and place in Naruto's world that has not really been touched on before, and that you would explore that aspect of the world and that aspect of the concepts of the Naruto through that character should you choose to play as them. And obviously each of them have their own unique mechanics. And obviously, from what you can kind of hear here, there isn't really a create your own character option. This is just picking from four existing characters, and then you get to make unique choices that shape that character. But ultimately, they are still their own character, dependent from you. And I know a lot of people would get upset about that, but I think that for a world like Naruto, something like this is kind of needed. Now, obviously, I would still have all kinds of options to adjust their appearances and all kinds of choices you can make in the story through them, but what choices you get will be different depending on what character you're playing as, because, well, they're different people from each other. But before I get into the specifics of each of those characters, I will talk about the general concept that I had for what the story setting is. Basically, I would have this take place in the time frame while Kakashi was Hokage. That kind of time period after the Fourth Great Ninja War, and before Naruto kind of took up the mantle. And if I remember correctly, I have repeated myself there, he was Hokage for a neighborhood of 10 years, maybe less, maybe more, somewhere around there. And yeah, that time frame I would have this story take place. And what I would have be happening, while I know this isn't really a concern that's brought up much in the manga, which bothers me, but I would still have it be canon in this game, in this version of events, that essentially, that despite a lot of the people that participated in the Fourth Great Ninja War are pretty cool with each other after fighting together, a lot of other people back home that were actually in those villages still hold a lot of grudges and still have a lot of problems with the other villages. So Kakashi and the other Hokage decide that in order to improve relations between the villages, that they should start kind of making inter-village squads. And these inter-village squads would mostly be of people that are a little older, for the most part, because it's real inconvenient to take the really youngsters, to take the ones that just became Genin, to take them out to fucking pasture for all this. But so they decided to just pick on either older Genin, those who've been Genin for a little too long, or Chunin individuals to use for this program to make these new squads made up of people from inter-villages, where you'd have 3 people, each from a different village, or mostly, and then finally a Jonin who would be supervising them, and that Jonin would just make sure that they don't kill each other. And yeah, and the story would kind of have at the beginning, just have this group of inter-village individuals coming together and then having to go out and do missions together. And the beginning of it would start off as relatively random missions, but it'd end up boiling over into its own plot, where I would have there be this criminal organization, this Yakuza kind of organized crime sort of situation going on that had taken root due to in all the chaos of the Fourth Great Ninja War and all the other militaries being busy. It's kind of this international organized crime unit, essentially. And obviously, a lot of the big hitters like Sasuke and Naruto should be able to take care of it without a problem. This organized crime group is kind of operating just kind of below their purview. They're kind of avoiding them in ways that there's a mystery to it, essentially. There's this mystery about how they're able to avoid the likes of Naruto and Sasuke, and yet weaker individuals are able to find them. Yeah, and that would be a whole thing that they would have to figure out, and it would just be kind of a fun plot around figuring out this organized crime, this crime organization, while at the same time, a lot of these companions trying to get used to each other when there might be some grudges and some personal problems. And yeah, that's a lot of what the main story would be, and obviously there'd be side missions based on the areas they're in and all that good stuff. And I would try to make it an interesting open world experience, which a lot of Naruto games have faltered in, and I would try. I don't know how well I could pull that off, but I would certainly try. And yeah, that would be kind of the setup. And as for your choices as to what characters you could play as, I would have a set of 4 characters you could pick from, each of them being from a different village, and each of them having a very different fighting style from the rest. And I don't have names for them, because I'm bad at making up names, especially in another language, so forgive me, but here I go with them. First up is going to be the simplest one, who is a taijutsu brawler type of fighter, and his entire shtick is that he is from a certain really old clan in the Hidden Stone Village, which holds the Kekkei Genkai of being able to produce minerals from their body, just like naturally. Not even trying to do a jutsu or anything, just like their chakra just naturally kind of builds up and protrudes from their body in the form of different types of rocks and minerals and crystals and shit. And for this dear boy that you get to play as, potentially, what his does is that his chakra just naturally produces out of his body as obsidian, being sort of a magma release situation, a magma release type chakra. And a lot of his fighting style would be based around just straight hand-to-hand break and just straight hand-to-hand combat, while at the same time having a lot of defense and just being a general wall of a person. And while he wouldn't use them much, he would also have a lot of crowd controlling type abilities, revolving around causing obsidian to grow out of the ground in specific ways to kind of crowd control. And I'm still not decided, but I think I would want there to be like mechanical flexibility, like there being different skill trees for each character, and I think that due to how magma release works, there being some like unique augmentations of the obsidian that you can create, like some unique variations you can learn how to create based on balancing the fire and earth chakras, fire and earth natures. Maybe create obsidian crystals that are kind of overcharged with fire-based chakra, and thus they can explode. Or maybe overcharging some with earth to cause some type of quaking effect in the area. And yeah, there's a lot of potential complexity there in how to build a character and balancing different ways of using the fire and earth release. Possibly him also having access to more general fire style and more general earth style. And yeah, I think that would just kind of all come up to the type of skill trees he would have, which is multiple ideas I can see in him. But I would probably fall back to the Borderlands style of making skill trees, where you have 3 different skill trees, and then each of those skill trees have a lot of customization. And the 3 skill trees for him would probably make the most sense to be... It'd probably make the most sense for his 3 skill trees to be, one being the pure obsidian skill tree, one being a skill tree focusing on his fire style, and another skill tree focusing on his earth style. I think there might be better ways to structure it. Maybe because I'm sorry, this is gonna be a little rambly, but I have made several different versions of each of these like skill trees in my head, and I'm not sure which ones are the best because I haven't had much feedback for them. But another idea of how to do it is have one skill tree for him focused or purely around how his Kekkei Genkai can enhance his taijutsu. Have another skill tree based purely around how well can he control the crowd with his Kekkei Genkai. And lastly, his last one just being based on like pure damage. How much type of like AoE damage he can do. And yeah, that might be another way to separate it out. But yeah, I think I've rambled enough on the mechanics for him. His story as a character and what a lot of his choices would revolve around this idea of leaning into his clan's ideals and clan's concepts of what he should be, versus leaning into what he as an individual should be, and like developing his own sense of right and wrong, and then possibly some split off decisions down that road. And also creating some more dynamics around his personality based choices. Like, I'd probably have him be the most aggressive person of the group, having a lot of personal issues resulting from his Kekkei Genkai causing him pain, thus putting him in a horrible mood a lot of times. And so a lot of his choices could also revolve around either resisting his own aggression or leaning into his own aggression. And yeah, as a backstory for him, without getting too in-depth, because I don't want to spend too long on each character, it would just essentially be that he was raised by this clan with this really lean into the pain type mindset, and also a lot of old traditions relating to a lot of philosophies in the Stone Village. And him being a young man is still kind of questioning whether those ideologies are right for him or not. And that would essentially just be his backstory. There wouldn't be nothing too complicated about it. And then next up on the list would be a guy from the Hidden Mist. And he would be a person very strongly... Oh, give me 1 second. Sorry, I had to find my notes. Sorry, I paused the recording to find my notes. The next one is a guy from the Mist Village, and the entire idea of him is that he uses a lot of genjutsus created by water vapor, or kind of transmitted via water vapor and whatnot. And the entire idea is that he's built almost like, I guess in like a D&D or gaming terms, he would be a lot like a rogue, where he's trying to hide himself / trick his opponent so that he can get some underhanded hits in, so to speak. And this would be contrasted a bit with what his goal is. I would actually have a very specific idea in that he greatly admires, very specifically, Gengetsu Hozuki, the second Mitsukage, who is a very honorable sort of fellow, so it's a little weird that he's so underhanded, but he greatly admires him and wants to be able to use a lot of the jutsu he was able to use, but a lot of the secrets behind those abilities have been kind of locked away by the Hozuki clan and whatnot. But in particular, what he wants access to is to be able to summon the clam that Gengetsu is able to summon. I will put a picture of it up here in case anyone forgot. And yeah, that's kind of one of his big goals, is to generally adopt more things like Gengetsu, but especially be able to use the clam. And the entire idea of him as a person is that he's kind of this street kid. He doesn't really come from a clan. He doesn't come from anything. A lot of his kind of vapor genjutsu that he's made is something he has made himself. It is not a Kekkei Genkai nor a clan technique. It is something he worked his ass off to figure out how to do, based on his own skill, based on what he could detect within himself. And a lot of his choices would be based around honor versus dishonor. It would be this kind of idea of, does he continue leaning into this roguish, backstabbing attitude that he's had for so long to keep himself alive, or does he lean into being more like the honorable man that Gengetsu was? Or maybe he kind of comes up with something in between along the way. And that's generally his shtick. That's his backstory, that's his motivation, and a lot of his choices can be summed up by that as well. And his story is just, do I act like I've always acted here, or do I act how Gengetsu would act? And that's kind of a question that's always coming up. And as for what skill trees he's had, this would probably be pretty easy. He'd probably have one skill tree dedicated to water, to some sense of water ninjutsu, but it'd be very... it'd be kind of damaging, but... I'm struggling to articulate myself, sorry. Yeah, he'd probably have one skill tree based around water ninjutsu a little bit. He'd have one based around his vapor genjutsu and all the ways it can be used. And then I'm not sure what to make it. What would the last? Maybe rephrasing the skill trees in a different light would probably be smarter. Maybe rephrasing them as I don't know. I'll have to think more on that. I just kind of realized looking at my notes that I never fleshed out these skill trees as much as I have the other one. Maybe swordsmanship? Swordsmanship could be cool. Yeah, that might be it. That might be the way to do it. But yeah. And that's kind of the sense that you get from him, is just very tricky. And that would be mostly his playstyle. Very tricky, very technical. And yeah. The next one would be a person from the Hidden Sand Village. And the Hidden Sand Village, and Yes, the Sand Village. And this person, well, potentially she. I have not distinguished gender much across these 4 characters, because gender was not something I was thinking about when making them. Their shtick, I would actually have be a puppet master shtick. A ninja tool / puppet master kind of shtick. And I would have them be actually kind of a supporty puppet master, if that makes sense. A lot of how they choose to engage, how to use their tools and how to use their puppets is more about setting up for the rest of the team / even healing the rest of the team and removing poisons from them and whatnot. And that's kind of the entire playstyle of this person. Some fun facts is that I would have them kind of be thoroughly, almost obsessively committed to puppet mastery due to them losing their arm a long time ago, and then Konkoro actually building her a new arm. Yeah, I think I'm going to commit to them being a sheep. I think I'm going to commit to that. Building her a new puppet arm and teaching her how to maintain it / upgrade it and all that kind of stuff. And thus that leading into her creating her own puppets. And yeah, it would be wonderful to have her fight, because she would probably be the one that I would have the most fun kind of constructing her abilities in game, just because there's so many weird, tricky shit that you could pull with a character like this, while at the same time being supportive. And I think that I would divide up her skill trees in a very easy manner. It would be one skill tree is dedicated to the puppet arm and making it good, which would revolve around just defending herself, essentially. Then have another puppet dedicated to being a battlefield menace and essentially setting traps and doing tricky shit, maybe applying different types of poisons or what have you. Just a puppet dedicated to being a cunt. And then the last puppet would be a support puppet, one that can run around that she would use to run around to either heal herself or heal allies or to protect them and provide all types of bonuses with that along those types of lines. It'd be kind of a mechanic where you could just designate puppet, sit on them. It just essentially just make the puppet sit on someone or on themselves, and then provide a bunch of benefits depending on how far in the skill tree you are. And yeah, that'd be pretty much her shtick. Her as a backstory, I've already hinted at it, would be that she kind of lost her arm when she was younger. Exactly how, I'm not sure yet, because I've thought of multiple different versions of it. I've thought of her potentially losing her arm due to an attack by this criminal organization on a place in the Sand Village. I've thought of her potentially losing it due to really neglectful / abusive parents. There's a lot there. I would want it to be very important and very integral to her story. And yeah, a lot of her personality would just be kind of obsessing over puppet mastery and trying to find ways to help other people. A lot of her mindset would be based around making sure other people do not have to go through what she went through. And a lot of her choices would revolve around certain moral quandaries of when and where to apply kindness. A lot of her concept would be, okay, do I help this person now, which could cause a lot of problems for someone else? Or do I do this thing which makes that person not be helped but prevents other people later down the line from being hurt. And a lot of her choices would kind of revolve around there of when do you apply kindness, how do you apply kindness in order to help/save the most amount of people, or do you care about the amount necessarily? A lot of moral questions like that would be proposed by her choices. And also she would have a story revolve about getting over the losing arm thing, because she's still not over it. Because, well, I mean, it's perfectly reasonable that she's not. But yeah, that's her character. And then, lastly, we have our dear individual from the village hidden in the clouds. I will say that this one has a high level of simplicity, similar to our Taijutsu boy, in that he is just she probably makes more sense. She has a like her entire shtick is just as much ninjutsu based destruction as possible. That is her playstyle. That's even her personality. Just maximize destruction. Her backstory, I haven't thought as much about, but it would be this kind of thing that leads to her. It would be an event or two in her life that kind of led her to be kind of obsessed with lightning and obsessed with its destructive power. Maybe even she lost family members to some lightning strikes, which is ironic in the village in the clouds. And ever since then, she's just wanted to expand her lightning release abilities as much as possible. And on top of that, I would want her to have access to storm release. Just because the possibilities of storm release is not something that's explored much at all in the main story. So trying to explore what a skill tree or two dedicated to that would look like, I think would be really cool. And a lot of her story would just be learning how to calm the fuck down. She is just so destructive as a person, and so willing and wanting to fight, that a lot of her story would just be about calming the hell down and making choices between leaning into the destructiveness or leaning out of it. Yeah, I think those last two probably need to be worked on quite a bit more before this concept actually makes it to a game. But I still like all of them. Oh yeah, what her skill trees would be. Just realized that. Be really simple. One skill tree revolving around just... one skill tree dedicated to single target lightning bombardment. Another skill tree focused around essentially applying some type of over time lightning damage type bullshit, like just summoning a cloud overhead that shoots lightning down on people every so often, that type of setup, or something along those lines. And then the last skill tree, I think, would just be like a triple down into exploring storm release and what all it can potentially do. Possibly like defense penetrating type mechanics, where just like people can't, like ignoring resistances and things like that probably would be best to lean into. But yeah, she'd be an overwhelmingly ranged character compared to everyone else. And yeah, that's the premise for the game, and those are the 4 characters you can play as, and this is the longest video I've ever fucking made. So, I hope y'all enjoyed me nerding out about this thing that I've always thought about. And, like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you think. Have a good day.